Let me entertain you. So, I am taking the time of the strike to try and maybe catch up on some commissioned reviews. Not all of them, because some of them are reviews of struck work and stuff that falls under the strike order, but not all of it. And so that means today I'm going to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to address this up front. I understand that the name of this show and the subsequent stage name of the real person that this is telling a theatrical version of the life of is considered by some to be a slur, or at the very least a demeaning and derogatory term for a certain kind of person. I will try to avoid excessive use of it. I'll also note that the peoples that it is used in that way towards are actually never present and never brought up. In the show, really, there's like one tiny reference that just explains where the name came from. But apologies if people don't like the word or don't like hearing the word. But Gypsy. This is a show I've actually seen before in person, not professionally. I saw it done in community theater a couple of years ago. I guess 4 or 5 years ago now. For the record, community theater is great. Like, seriously, as long as a community theater stays within its budget and its assets, they can be phenomenal. And the performance I saw of this was pretty dang good. But this in specific is a recording of the performance in 2015 at the Savoy Theater. And it stars Imelda Staunton as Rose, who is the mother of the titular character. It also features Peter Davison, the Fifth Doctor himself, appearing as a character called Herbie, who's kind of a agent love interest for Rose. There are a number of other performers, but the other one that I'm going to single out is Laura Pulver, who plays Louise, who later adopts the stage name of that. So they're all really good. Imelda Staunton actually got an Olivier Award for her performance in this, because while this is based on a book that was written by Louise, by Gypsy Rose Lee, and it is in many ways her life story, the central figure and character of the play is really her mother, Rose. And it's let me put it this way: if you are not familiar with this story or this play, which is one of the first ones Stephen Sondheim worked on. He didn't do the music, he just did the lyrics on this. But this and West Side Story were like the first things he worked on before he started doing his own music. So there's that. But in any case, if you aren't familiar with this story, the short version is show business mothers and stage moms are not a new phenomena. So this tells the story of Rose and her 2 children, June and Louise. And Rose is a single mother. She's been married 3 times. Husbands have all walked out on her. And she is pushing these kids into vaudeville and that kind of performance. And they're not untalented. And she's not unskilled. She is, the best way to describe Rose is she is a force of nature, for better and worse. She is the kind of person who doesn't know how to dial it back from 11. And so what that can and does mean over the course of this is, like, she has the stubbornness and the strength of personality to actually muscle the way in, like, for her daughters, get their foot in the door, get them their opportunities, but she also doesn't know when to back off. So her strength of personality, her perseverance, her stubbornness will get them an opportunity. And then the fact that she won't back off once they're there will eventually cause them to lose that opportunity for one reason or another. And there is a lot of emphasis in this, in the fact that Rose is always framing these things as things that she's doing for her daughters. She's not. She only wants them to succeed if it means that she can claim credit for that success and or in some way experience it vicariously. When, I guess, well, no, I'll wait for spoiler stuff, but she is a parent who, for one reason or another, feels her own life wasn't what it should have been. And she's going to try and force her children to live the life she feels she should have had. And to what extent she honestly believes they want this, sometimes I think maybe she does. Other times I think she's aware, but is not going to change her mode of behavior. And it's sad watching someone completely fail to recognize that the reason when your kids are young, they say they want these things, they say they want to be on stage and they want to perform, is because they know that's what you want. They want to make you happy. But as they get older, they're going to discover what happiness actually means to them and for them. And as they do, that's going to cause rifts. And Rose is the kind of person, Rose is actually a fascinatingly well-balanced character, both on the page and in Imelda Staunton's performance here in this. Because you understand why she manages to keep things moving forward. You understand that she is not completely devoid of care for her children, but her priorities are a mess. And her stubbornness won't open her eyes to the damage she's doing. It's a tricky thing to do to show a parent like this who is ultimately harming her kids, but who is not, strictly speaking, a quote-unquote bad person. Like, the idea of bad person is a dicey thing, but like, to make a comparison, and this is going to be an odd comparison because unless you saw my review for the Doctor Who fan audio, The Woman in the Ceiling, then I'm going to have to try to explain it. There was a mother character in that who was Rose but worse, who just flat out actively did not seem to care about her kids at all beyond what they could do to bolster herself. Rose is not quite that black and white. She's not devoid of care. She's not devoid of affection. However, it's all conditional. She cares so long as she can feel like they owe some of their success to her. She cares so long as what her daughters are trying for in some way fits the vision that she wants for them. And she will restrict or remove that affection if things aren't going her way. So while her affection is conditional, which is wrong as a parent, especially for how young the kids are at the start of the show, it's not no affection. I don't believe that the affection she shows is fake. I don't think she's faking affection. I think the affection is genuine, but she is both capable and willing to take it away to get what she wants. I'm going to start talking in more specifics, and this could be considered a little bit more spoilery. So if you haven't seen the show either live or this particular recording of it, and you want to, and you don't want to know massively in advance what happens, then this might be the time to bow out. It's a good show. I like it. Later on in the show, it deals with burlesque. That's not a spoiler in and of itself, because if you have any clue who Gypsy Rosalie was, like, that's what she is known for. And I like the way that was done. As a burlesque performer, I actually quite like that aspect. It could have been done very poorly, very sleazily, and I'll go into more detail when I get into more spoilery stuff, but I enjoy this show. I think it's good. And I think the exploration of parent-child dynamics, of the charisma, but also damage of someone like Rose, because like, she is a charismatic person. She sweeps people up in her wake, but she's a hurricane. You'll get swept along for the ride, but you're going to get tossed about and ultimately spat out, left behind, or smashed into something, and it's going to hurt. It's just really well done. It's a really, Really good show, and Imelda Staunton is great. Peter Davison is really good in it, with an American accent. That threw me off, but I got used to it. And he does a really good job playing Herbie, who is a character who is not devoid of a spine. He does have one, because the few times that he shows it, it's like, yeah, I like you, Herbie. But he is swept up in Rose's wake. And he loves her. But Rose is not someone that you can love and come away undamaged. So there you go. Anyways, we're going to get more into more flat out spoilery kind of stuff. So here we go. The fact that Rose is, when she and Louise, because at this point, June's already left. June left and got married, and Rose basically writes her off as a person at that point. And how accurate this is to reality is a little up and down. Like, this is specifically Louise, Gypsy Rose Lee's account of things, or at least this is a dramatization of her account of things. So this is a one-sided portrayal. Keep that in mind. So while this is based on true events and someone's actual life story, don't necessarily take it 100% as that's definitely what happened. But June gets written off and completely ignored once she leaves. To have her own life and pursue acting, which in reality she did successfully even. But Rose is still touring with Louise, and like vaudeville has basically collapsed at this point. What little is left of vaudeville has become burlesque, and they end up in a burlesque house. And like, it's not that they're expected to strip. They're not. The people who book them know what they are, but basically they're the quote unquote clean act that they have to put up to have the nice performances be not total debauchery 100% all the way through, so they don't upset the local authorities. So when Rose realizes what kind of places and what kind of show they got booked for, she's deeply offended. She talks about leaving immediately, and then it's like, okay, look, we'll just finish this. And actually Louise talks her around on this. Like, we can't quit right now because we don't even have the money to get us anywhere else if we quit. So we need to at least do this gig and then we can quit. And Rose seems like she is maybe prepared to accept that. And it's very telling that it is during this moment where she suddenly is accepting of Herbie's long-running marriage proposal, which she has always shot down. Because it's only when she is in the depths of despair and thinks everything else is over that she is willing to accept a life that might be at least slightly on somebody else's terms. And they're prepared to, like, we'll wrap this out and then we'll go. And then one night, a burlesque performer didn't show up. And when Rose finds out it's the headliner, when she finds out it's the star, she pushes Louise out onto that stage. But then once Louise is out there, she finds her performance voice. She finds herself, because what Gypsy Rose Lee was known for was putting massive emphasis on the tease part of the striptease. Making the audience wait for as long as possible, engaging them directly, making jokes, laughing with them, being always in control. And once she does that, that's hers. Her mother might have pushed her out there, but what she found was hers, which means her mother is very resentful of it because she can't claim it, because she can't enjoy it vicariously. So there's that aspect of burlesque. I think my favorite song in the thing is probably You Gotta Get a Gimmick. Like, there's a lot of good songs in this. Rose has a great one towards the end. There's a lot of good music in this, but You Gotta Get a Gimmick I like a lot because, honestly, as much as Gypsy Rose Lee as a performer kind of elevated burlesque to be more than just like get down to the skimpiness as quick as possible and add a gimmick to it, there is still validity in just getting a gimmick. Because that's one of the things that just as a performer, I love about burlesque. Yes, there are performers who are masterful dancers who are exquisitely talented in just the art of the strip and can just do that so well that they don't need a gimmick. But you don't have to be at that level to do burlesque and do it really well. There's nothing wrong with a gimmick. A gimmick is fun. And I kind of appreciate that all the performers who are in that number and singing that song, they're all older. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more body variety because like when I saw the community theater production, yeah, they were all older than Louise was, but, you know, one of them was a little bit heavier. One of them, you know, was kind of squat. They're kind of all, they're older, but they're all, you know, older with dancer bodies. So like, I would have liked to see more variety in that, but it is still appreciative and doesn't pretend that what they're doing isn't kind of awesome, because it is. And as much as I enjoy that aspect, and I do enjoy it quite a bit, the heart and soul of this is the story of a mother who believes she wants what's best for her kids, but really just wants them to live the life she thought she was going to have, or she thought she should have had. And her inability to be a parent beyond that. Like, and that's not a reason to, that's not an angle anyone should be taking on parenting, but she can't move past it. She can't move beyond it. She can't let them stop. And I think it's very telling that June, who was the one who was being sort of pegged as the star that Rose was going to make, left of her own accord. Louise didn't. Not until she found something that could truly be her own, which was burlesque. But June left and Louise stayed. I think this has a very good understanding of the toxic, reciprocal, and sort of just going around and around nature of these kinds of dynamics, because Louise was the daughter from whom affection was withheld a lot more than from June. And June's the one who's able to leave, and Louise can't. Because with June gone, maybe she can finally get some of that affection that she hasn't gotten. And whereas June, one could argue, was overloaded with it, or at least Rose's version of it, Louise hasn't gotten it, and she's going to hang on, hoping to find it. And it doesn't paint any of this as good, because it's not. One of the interesting things about this show in general is it will end differently, depending on the run or the version of the show. Not drastically, but just the specific note that the very end chooses to be, it can shift. There are versions of the ending that flatly just leave Rose on her own. There are some that are slightly more hopeful, like with even a hint of reconciliation. This one kind of finds the middle ground, and I kind of like it. This idea that Louise can't bring herself to fully abandon her mother, but she also understands who her mother is. And so while she's not going to leave her mother alone, she's also not just going to do whatever her mother wants. At least that's the impression that I got. I think that's a good way to balance the two extremes that the ending can sometimes have in terms of its emotional impact. Gypsy. Have you ever seen it? Either this particular performance or anywhere? Professionally performed, community theater, whatever. Have you seen it? Are you familiar with it? Are you familiar with Gypsy Rose Lee as a performer in general? What do you think of her? Whatever your thoughts are on any of this, you want to ask me questions about burlesque? I'll answer those. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down the bottom. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and is how I am able to do this as my living. It's also how I was commissioned to review this piece of work. But don't worry too much about it. There's links to other stuff I do down below. You can check that out as well. But ultimately, we take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. A special thanks to my highest supporting patrons, Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Turok, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Oliver B., Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Pranabi Likes the Poodle, Robin Powell, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Dave Hall, and Rosalind Bennett. You'll see a bunch of other names down there as well. There's plenty of things to get on the Patreon, and yeah, you can hear me attempt to say your name without embarrassing myself. Check out the rewards, and thank you for everyone who supports this.